Over at BangTheBook.com, we are your one-stop shop for sports betting news and information. Lots of great stuff from our strong cast of writers. Again, power ratings from college football from me, for the NFL from Danny Vorgs, daily NHL picks from Parker Michaels, Admir Algic working on his NBA preseason stuff. We've got Eastern Conference odds, NBA championship odds, Western Conference odds, MVP. We're going to talk about some live betting tips, talk about betting teasers in the NBA. Lots of different stuff going into our NBA content here. And we're also working through what we'll be doing on a daily basis for the NBA as well as college basketball when that gets underway. Great golf preview this week from James Mazzola. Hopefully you're able to catch that. The Asian swing going on. He'll be previewing those events here as we go through the fall. We've got soccer previews from Admir Algic, UFC and NASCAR previews from myself. Also, we'll have the NFL and the college football market reports on Friday morning, so you can check those out over at bangthebook.com, highlighting some line moves, kind of forecasting where some of these lines may move on game day. We got a ton of stuff over there at the website, a lot of great resources. Please make sure that you're checking it all out. We also have some free pick videos over on our Bang the Book YouTube page, some from myself, some from Brian Blessing, who you hear every Tuesday on the show. And something else I haven't mentioned in a while, but if you're a regular listener to Bang the Book Radio, you can find us on Spreaker, Stitcher, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Podbean, TuneIn, SoundCloud, Overcast. Wherever you find your podcast content, you're going to find Bang the Book Radio there. We do have our full shows on iTunes, and I'm sure that they go out on the feed to some of the other places, but also the edited segments as well, where we just got, if you like a certain guest, you just want to listen to that segment, you're a little bit pressed for time, go ahead and do that. Obviously, we hope you listen to everything here with the show, but I just wanted to update you on that here at the top of today's show and the top of today's segment, because there are a lot of different ways to get Bang the Book Radio, so make sure you check it out. Finally, as you know, this and every edition of Bang the Book Radio, presented by our friends over at DSI Sportsbook, BTB and the number 200 is that promo code. 100% deposit match bonus for the sportsbook, 100% deposit match bonus for the live casino at BetDSI. It's only a game until you bet it. One other quick reminder here about the other stuff that I write over at the website. First round of the NBA situational betting tips already up for next week's games. And then late Sunday night, early Monday morning, some situational betting tips for the NHL as well. You want to definitely look for those scheduling spots in both of those sports. And we'll do what we can to work in NBA and NHL stuff as we go forward here. And, of course, we'll do quite a bit of college basketball. And I know it seems like we're biased toward the college sports here, but it's just that there are so many more games to try and discuss, so many more games to try and figure out, that we just kind of gravitate more towards that college side just to try and get a wide, broad spectrum of the different games that are out there. And we try to do as much as we can with the pro leagues as well. And speaking of the pro leagues here, week 7 in the NFL. You'll hear me talk about this a few different times on the segment with Brent here to finish out this week on the show. I do not like this week's NFL card. I know I have a different excuse every week for not liking the NFL card, but this one here, in particular, when you look at the lines in the Circa Million, 5 games sitting right on the key number of 3, 4 games in the SuperContest sitting on the key number of 3. You've got 2 games here that are under 3 that have flipped favorites. You've got the 2 huge favorites in Buffalo, and then San Francisco going cross-country for an early kickoff. You got a lot of games here hovering around the key number of 3. So you've got a lot of games where, these teams are fairly comparable. Obviously, you work home field advantage into the equation and stuff like that. But you've got a lot of uncertainty here this week in the NFL. So I found this to be one of the tougher weeks. As I mentioned last week, I was having a hard time narrowing down the card. I did wind up going 3-2 in the SuperContest last week. Now 17-12-1 on the season. Also went 3-2 over in the Circa Million. Didn't have the same 5 picks. I did swap out the Vikings for the Texans. Wish I would have had both of them, because then I would have went 4-1 in the Circa Million. But over in the Circa Million here, 15-14-1 to open up the season. The BangTheBook.com entry for the SuperContest went 2-3, now 17-13. Mine is the Bang the Book podcast entry at 17-12-1. And then over in the Circa Million, Our other entry here coming in at 19, 10, and 1. So really good start for that entry over in the Circa Million. And for me here, 3 and 2 in the Super Contest. And as we look at how the field did last week, 46.55% in the Super Contest, now 50.35% for the season. And keep in mind that 50.35% success rate takes into account the 4 points of line value in that Browns-Jets game in week 2, where the Sam Darnold injury news came out either late Wednesday night or early Thursday morning, whenever that was. The line was 4 points lower in the Circa Million, or 4 points higher, I should say, in the Circa Million than it was in the Super Contest. And we've got the field at 50.35% in the Super Contest and 50.22% in the Circa Million. So even with that game, where the Browns were taken by the highest number of entries ever, and in the Circa, they were taken by just a little bit more than 10% of the field, we still don't have a big discrepancy here in terms of success rate between those two contests. 3 weeks under 50%, 3 weeks over 50% in the Super Contest here so far. 40.16% is the low point. 58.04% is the high point that came in week 3. And you can get those numbers every week over at BangTheBook.com in our Tuesday recap article. We're not in the Super Contest Gold this year, but 44.66% last week, 51.85% now, the success rate for the Super Contest Gold for the season. Over in the Circa Million, like I mentioned, 50.22% for the year, 47.13% last week. So a tough week for contestants in both of those fields. We are in the second quarter over in the Circa Million. Remember, the quarter prizes, $143,750 for the best record in each of the 4 quarters. So you've got weeks 1 to 4, 5 to 8, 9 to 12, then 13 to 17. 3 entries, a perfect 10-0 here through the first 2 weeks. My entry is now currently 7-3. 17-3 was the winning score for the first quarter. So hopefully I can rattle off a 10-0 here and at least put myself in the running for that. As far as line differences, and I do like to talk about these here because I think that they're really interesting and could potentially be very important. The Vikings are -1 in the Super Contest. They're -1.5 in the Circa Million. Packers -4.5 in the Super Contest, -5 in the Circa. 49ers -9.5 at the Westgate, -9 down at Golden Gate, which is where the Circa is in Las Vegas. Titans -2.5 in the Super Contest, 2 in the Circa. Bears -3.5 in the Super Contest, 3 in the Circa, and that's where your 5th game comes in, sitting flat on the key number of 3. But in the Super Contest, we've got 4 of them. So again, the hooks could be very, very key here this week. And like I said, I don't really like a whole lot on this NFL card. I struggled to find 3 picks to talk about in the segment and a handful of leans. If you're in any sort of contests or pools, and I know that a lot of people, they're not willing to pony up the $1,500 for the Super Contest or the $1,000 for the Circa, but they want to get into a $100 pool with their friends or something like that. If you're in one of these pools that uses the Super Contest, and you're also in a similar situation where you look at the card and go, you know what, I don't really like anything. I'm not really sure what to take here. Look for line value. Especially if you don't like the card, look for line value. Go look at your odds screen and see that, some of these games may have moved around. For example, the Packers are -4.5 in the Super Contest. They're 5.5 out there, pretty much market wide. So again, we've talked about this on the show before, and Rolf Michaels mentioned this, that 5 has become a pretty key number in the NFL with missed extra points and 2-point conversions and all that type of thing. So there may be some equity in the difference between 4.5 and 5.5. So if you can't find 5 games that you like, and I'm not saying you have to take the Packers here, I'm just illustrating this as an example. If you can't find 5 games that you like, that's a game that's off a full point from the market. So maybe you make that your 5th game, kind of play on that line value a little bit. We'll see if that's something I wind up doing here with the leans that are on my card. But again, it's important to look at some of these things, because you may not like games. You may not like enough games week in and week out. That's where the line value comes into play. And again, a lot of people out there for the NFL say that they bet numbers and not teams anyway. So, maybe the difference between the Bears at 3.5 in the SuperContest and at 3 in the Circa, that possibility of a push, if you're playing a pool with Circa lines or you're in the Circa Million, maybe you take the Bears here this week at the 3 if you don't like anything else, because you're not laying that 3.5. You're getting that half point of value that could come into play. I mean, a half point is better than no point. And that's something, again, obviously you'll get this from the other side more often than not. But, a couple of weeks ago, I didn't take Baltimore in the Circa Million because they were 3.5. I took them in the SuperContest at 3, and they were the push, the one push that I have here on the season so far. So, again, line value, the equity around those key numbers with those half points, very, very important to say the least, especially in a market as tight and as efficient as the NFL. So if you're ever having a hard time this week or in any subsequent weeks, look for some of that line value. Try to use that to your advantage and fill out your card that way if there aren't enough games that you like. So here we go. We move into the games that I do like here for week 7. Again, recording this on Thursday evening. So things may change with the injury reports. Maybe weather reports get a little bit clearer, something like that. So again, these are games that are very likely to be picks on my card, and then a list of leans that will probably round out my card here. Again, like I said, recording on Thursday night, so some of these things can change a little bit. Well, we start with number 3 here by SuperContest rotation order. That is the New York Football Giants. They're a 3-point favorite against the Arizona Cardinals. Cardinals off of a win, and maybe a win that they shouldn't have gotten. Who knows what happens if Matt Bryant was able to make some extra points. But now they make a long trip east for an early kickoff against the Giants. The Giants injury report looking a lot better here. Extra rest, of course, coming off the Thursday night game. And really for me, along with the Giants looking healthier, and that's obviously a very important thing. A lot of skill position guys likely to come back and help Daniel Jones out a little bit. But when you look at the Giants here the last 2 weeks, the Patriots and the Vikings have been the two defenses that they have faced. Patriots allowing 4.1 yards per play. Vikings allowing 4.8 yards per play. The Cardinals allowing 6.3 yards per play. So a much better matchup for the Giants offense here this week. The Giants have had turnover problems. I completely agree with that stance. The Cardinals only have 3 takeaways this season. So aside from the injuries, the turnovers have been the biggest issue for the Giants. They're facing a team that doesn't take the football away. So that's going to help the Giants here. The Cardinals are not a team that really does a whole lot in terms of generating turnovers or negative plays. They blitz a lot. If you look at the most frequent blitzing defenses, they're up there in the top 10. But the blitz doesn't get there. They've allowed the 4th most air yards passing on the season. So they blitz a lot. They don't get there. The secondary is not nearly what it used to be with some of the losses that they've experienced over the last couple of years. So they're giving up 6.3 yards per play. They only have 3 takeaways. Daniel Jones has got some talent at the skill positions here. I think the Giants can move the football. And of course, the big question is, can they score? Well, the last 2 weeks here, the Giants played the Patriots, who are allowing points on 6.3% of opponents' possessions. 6.3. By the way, the Patriots are a regression candidate, and I will touch on that a little bit later in the segment, but that's astonishing. Only 6.3% of their possessions against, ending in points. And then the Vikings, 26.6%. So opponents, basically worded another way, opponents are not scoring 73.4% of the time against the Vikings. Against the Cardinals, though, they're scoring about half the time. The Cardinals allowing points on 49.2% of their opposing possessions. So the Giants are going to move the football better, and they should have a chance to put up points here in this game. And even the Giants defense, which all of us have taken pot shots at over the course of the season, they're only allowing points on 38.2% of opponents' possessions. So I like the Giants here quite a bit. This is probably my favorite pick of week 7 here in the SuperContest. David Johnson's not 100%. Christian Kirk is still hobbled. I think this is a bad spot for the Cardinals, and the Giants are really getting a much more comparable opponent here. Maybe an opponent that you could say that they're better than. And again, with the Cardinals, allowing points on about 50% of their possessions. I like the Giants here, -3 in the SuperContest for this week. They are rotation number 3 out there for the contest here on Sunday. Also taking a look at the Jacksonville Jaguars, number 13 in the SuperContest rotation order. They're a 3.5-point favorite here against the Cincinnati Bengals. And, I was on the Jaguars last week, and they just got shut down by the Saints defense. And I'll talk about that here again in a couple of minutes, but I get it. It's hard to lay road prices with the Jaguars. But look at this team here on this season. Even though the defense has really struggled, the defense has fallen off considerably from where the Jacksonville defense used to be. They are still on the plus side, albeit barely, in yards per play differential. So that gives you an idea of how well they're moving the football. And I would anticipate that this team should get better here over the course of the season on defense. Jacksonville only has 2 takeaways on the season here, but even with that, opponents are only scoring on 34.8% of their possessions against Jacksonville. So they are 32nd in turnovers. They are dead last, but they are 12th in percentage of opponents' possessions ending in a score. The Bengals have turned the football over 11 times here so far. So if the Jaguars are able to get some of those takeaways, they can move the football. They're averaging about 6 yards per play here on the season so far. So if they start to generate some more of those turnovers, and the Bengals could certainly give that up to them, they could do a very good job here offensively in this game. And even without the takeaways, still 12th in percentage of opponents' possessions ending in a score at 34.8% is very, very strong for that Jacksonville defense. So they're giving up yards, they're bending, but they're not fully breaking. And that should be enough here against a team like the Bengals. Also, when you look at Jacksonville so far, some really tough spots for them this season. In week 1, they faced a healthy Patrick Mahomes. It's nearly impossible to stop a healthy Patrick Mahomes. In week 2, they played the Texans. It was just before the Texans got hot. Deshaun Watson, obviously a world-class quarterback. We're seeing that here this year. So not a great spot for them there in that one. Titans on Thursday night. That was a nice win for Jacksonville there in that one. They escaped against the Broncos, but the Broncos are better than an 0-4 team at that point in time. And, of course, as we've seen here, Denver with back-to-back impressive wins over the Chargers and the Titans. In their 5th game, Jacksonville ran into the Carolina Panthers as they got hot. Kyle Allen's been really good for them. He's been a big upgrade to Cam Newton. And then last week, the Saints defense has been dominant the last 3 weeks. And they've won games in spite of Teddy Bridgewater because of how dominant that defense has been. So when you look at Jacksonville here on the season, they've kind of been up against it in one way or another just about every week except for that Titans game. So I think this is a really good spot for them. They're coming down in class in a very, very big way. They're finally playing a game where they are clearly the better team. The Bengals secondary is very, very banged up. Drake Kirkpatrick is out. William Jackson probably going to be out as well. And the Jaguars here, top 5 in pressure percentage. So again, if they start to force some of those turnovers, this defense is going to look a whole lot better. But they're top 5 in pressure percentage. The Bengals have allowed 22 sacks. Everything lines up here for me to like Jacksonville this weekend. So number 13, the Jacksonville Jaguars, -3.5 on my SuperContest card here for week 7. The last game here that's going to be listed as a very likely pick is number 26, the Philadelphia Eagles. They're +2.5. And, what's interesting is that the SuperContest lines came out on Wednesday night. The Circa Million lines came out on Thursday. At the time that these lines came out, the Eagles were still +3 market-wide. But they came out +2.5 in the SuperContest and the Circa Million. And we do see some opinion put into play here from the Westgate and from the Circa with the lines that they put out, just expecting numbers to move that way. Obviously, it was a little bit of foreshadowing, so hopefully you were able to get a 3 out there in the marketplace. And, yeah, I wish this one was 3, but look, the Dallas Cowboys are going in reverse here. Jason Garrett's just taking more and more responsibility away from his coordinators, especially from Kellen Moore. It has to be awful to be Kellen Moore right now. The offense looked so good the first 3 weeks. Yeah, they played some cupcakes, but they were stunningly efficient. A lot of motion, a lot of play action, a lot of confusion created in the opposing secondary. None of that's happening anymore. None of that has been a thing over the last few weeks. It's obvious that the players do not like Jason Garrett. We've all seen that GIF or that video clip of the players not even acknowledging Garrett as they came off the field. And ownership really seems to have its head in the sand. Remember when Ezekiel Elliott was holding out earlier on in the season and Jerry Jones was like, F that guy, we don't need him. We've got Tony Pollard or, whoever it is that they have. And then last week, Stephen Jones comes out and says, well, we usually win when Ezekiel Elliott gets 30 touches. No, that's not the right way to look at this. You win when Elliott gets 30 touches because you're protecting a lead. Last week, they weren't protecting a lead. They were getting taken to the woodshed by the Jets for the majority of that game. It was not a good look for Dallas last week. They really struggled at the point of attack once again, and they've got some substantial injury concerns here going into this game. Obviously, the Eagles have had a lot of injury concerns over the course of the season, lots of different skill position guys being out. But in this game here, for Dallas, Amari Cooper's not 100%. He may not even play. Michael Gallup he doesn't have any Gallup. He doesn't have that extra step that he needs this year to create separation. The entire secondary for Dallas on the injury report here, it seems. Both tackles likely to be out. Tyrone Crawford on the defensive line is out. A lot of key injuries for the Cowboys here. And you can overcome injuries in the NFL if you've got depth, if you've got the coaching, and if you've got the scheme. Dallas does, to a degree, maybe has the depth. They don't have the coaching, and they don't have the scheme. So I like the Eagles here this week. Hey, you look at Dallas. They went 3-0 against the Giants, Redskins, and Dolphins. Those three teams are 3-14 combined on the season here so far. Eagles are scoring on a higher percentage of possessions than their opponents. The Cowboys are giving up the fourth highest number of yards after the catch. And what do we know about Doug Peterson and that Andy Reid type of style of offense? It's really predicated on yards after the catch. It's about putting the ball in space to your skill position guys and letting them go to work. Dallas has missed some tackles. Dallas has not been great in the secondary, and so many injuries here in the back seven, on the offense, on the offensive line. Dallas just isn't the team that we saw early on in the season. This is a square pick. This is very clearly the public side here in this one, taking Philadelphia. And you would think that would be a little bit of a surprise after how poor they played last week against the Vikings. But the Vikings just had a great passing game. Kirk Cousins kind of had an out-of-body experience against a good team. I don't think that Philadelphia can be exploited in the same way by Dallas. So give me the Eagles here, number 26 in the SuperContest rotation order, plus the 2.5. So the three very likely plays for me: Giants -3, Jaguars -3.5, Eagles plus 2.5. So, of course, as you know, 5 plays in the SuperContest. Got to find a couple more here. This is my current list of leans, and a lot of moving parts here in the NFL this week. So maybe there are some games that I may have some different takes on as we go throughout Friday. But one of them I'm looking at here, the Indianapolis Colts are a 1-point favorite against Houston. And Houston's playing really, really well. I mean, the Texans have fixed their offensive line protections. Deshaun Watson's playing extremely well. Obviously, you've got J.J. Watt on defense, and he's just a game changer and a world-class type of athlete. But I've got a lot of respect for Frank Reich as a planner and as a preparer. And he's got the week off here to take a look at the Texans, try and throw some different things at Deshaun Watson. And I get it. Schematically, this game is not great for the Colts. They don't get a whole lot of pressure. Can they cover Deshaun Watson's wide receivers? Maybe. It's tough to say because Indianapolis is healthier now than they really have been at any other point in the season. T.Y. Hilton's been banged up. Darius Leonard's missed 3 weeks with a concussion. Malik Hooker remains out. That's a big loss in a game like this. But they're finally a little bit healthier. And real quietly here, the Colts are 5th in points per drive. Now, the Texans are 3rd. Indianapolis doesn't want this game to become a track meet. But when you look at a blueprint for success, look at what the Colts did against the Chiefs a couple of weeks ago before the bye. They ran the football. They kept it away from Patrick Mahomes. They took advantage of a lackluster defense. Now, Houston's defense is not as bad as Kansas City's, but it's still not great. It's not a great unit here. So if Indianapolis takes that same game plan, with a healthier cast of characters on both sides of the ball, with Frank Reich having extra time to prepare, with some young coordinators having some extra time to prepare, the Colts are the side for me here. I do like them -1. We'll see if they ultimately make the Super Contest card, but they are on my short list of leans here. Number 5, the Indianapolis Colts, -1. I don't know if I can do this, but I may be able to. The Buffalo Bills are a 17-point favorite over the Miami Dolphins. They are number 7 in the Super Contest rotation order. Brian Flores last week said that they were going to plan for the future with Josh Rosen. He was going to be their guy. Well, now it's Ryan Fitzpatrick again. It's a shit show in South Florida. There's really no other way to put it than it's just a complete and utter disaster. It is a catastrophe. By design, by and large. This is what Miami wanted. They wanted to tank for Tua. They're probably going to get him. Who knows? They could tank for Trevor if Tua doesn't work out with the way that they're currently going. But this is what they wanted. You've got a Bills team here that has an elite defense, one of the best defenses in the NFL. They're off a bye. I think it's a well-timed bye to give that defense a blow, to give Josh Allen a chance to shake off any other loose cobwebs from the concussion. I think it was a great time for a bye here for the Buffalo Bills. Now, they don't blitz a lot. And we have seen that the Dolphins have given up a ton of sacks so far this season. So maybe Buffalo will try to blitz a little bit more here in this game. I think that is something that could help them. But look, this is a Dolphins team that up until the backdoor cover in the fourth quarter last week, they had 3 points in 3 quarters against the Redskins. And the Redskins are just not a good team. They had fired their coach on Monday. That's a real bad look for Miami. Again, they got within the number, but still, the garbage time 13 points doesn't really impress me very much. Only their second road game of the season. They lost to the Cowboys 31-6, got outgained by almost 200 yards. The obvious concern here is that Buffalo is maxed out at 28 points this season. How many points do they need to score to cover this number? If they get to 28, they cover the number as far as I'm concerned. And this is a Bills team that will not want to give up a lot of points. If they're shutting out the Dolphins, like so many teams have here this season, they're going to vie for that shutout. They're going to want that goose egg, especially against Ryan Fitzpatrick, who, of course, they're very familiar with from his time in Buffalo. So I think this game has a little bit more of a personal level to it for the Bills now that Fitzpatrick's getting the start. Who knows? Maybe that's part of the master plan there for Miami to tank and let Buffalo take its pot shots at Fitzpatrick. I don't know, but I think the Bills can cover this number. I think if they get to a point where the Dolphins are in single digits, I think they can cover the number. So Bills -17, again, a very large number with what appears to be kind of a marginal offense. I still think that the Bills may end up being the right side there in that game. So we'll see if I decide to add them. Obviously, a big degree of risk with a big double-digit favorite like that, but something I am considering here a little bit. Number 9, the Minnesota Vikings. They're a 1-point favorite in the Super Contest here, and really this would just be more of a spot play. A tough loss for the Lions on Monday Night Football. Seems like it would be a challenge to bounce back. Lions allowing the fewest yards after catch this season, but still, you got Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs, who are 2 very, very good route runners, guys that can get out in the open. Lions allowing over 5 yards per carry here against the Minnesota offense. That's not particularly good. A short week, a quick turnaround for Matthew Stafford and the back issues that he had coming into the season. So Vikings -1 on my short list. It's not one of my favorites here of the leans, but still one that I'm going to do a little bit more digging into and also see, of course, some potential important injuries with Darius Slay and Quandre Diggs in the secondary here for Detroit. I think both of those guys do play, but Slay's been on the injury list almost every week this season. The one less day to heal and prepare for this game. So Vikings -1 on my short list here, a game I am kind of considering. Finally, number 28, the New York Jets on Monday Night Football +9.5. Just a different look and a different feel last week with Sam Darnold. They looked a lot more confident, looked a lot more competitive. The Patriots, again, there has to be some regression here at some point. Like I just mentioned, they've given up points on less than 7% of the opponent's possessions. That's going to regress. I mean, that's a number that can't stick around. I mean, that's beyond elite. That's historic. I don't think that's going to be the case. And offensively here, The Patriots have only scored on 37.8% of their drives. That ranks 15th in the NFL. They're only 10th in points per drive. So can they cover with some margin here? Can they go out there and win by double digits on the road? They can, but the Jets look a little bit different here with Darnold back. The defense has played better than I think most people realize. And the Patriots, not prolific on offense. So if that defense does experience some regression, as I would expect, Jets may be pretty live to cover this number here on Monday night. So again, the 3 picks for me this week, Giants -3, Jaguars -3.5, Eagles +2.5. The list of leans here, at least as of right now, Colts -1, Bills -17, Vikings -1, and the Jets +9.5. Make sure you check out our Saturday SuperContest article and also our Circa Million article over at BangTheBook.com with our picks, with the consensus pick counts, and of course a run through of the spreads here for this week in those 2 football handicapping pools.